The coded radio transmission crackled through the night air from San Francisco to Tokyo on September 14, 1944. Agent Takeshi Yamamoto, operating under the cover identity of a gardener at the Presidio, stared at the numbers he had just witnessed at the nearby aircraft storage facility. Row upon row of brand-new fighters and bombers stretched beyond the horizon, each one wrapped in protective coating, waiting for deployment orders that might never come. Yamamoto was one of Japan's most experienced intelligence operatives, a man who had spent 3 years documenting American industrial capacity for the Imperial General Staff. His reports had consistently been dismissed as exaggerated propaganda, his superiors unable to believe that any nation could possess the manufacturing capability he described. But the sight before him defied even his own understanding of what was possible. Over 15,000 aircraft sat in perfect formation at this single facility, more planes than the entire Japanese Air Force had possessed at its peak strength. And according to his carefully cultivated sources, this was just one of dozens of such storage sites across America. His contacts in aircraft manufacturing suggested the unthinkable. The United States had produced so many military aircraft that hundreds of thousands sat unused, held in strategic reserve for conflicts that might never occur. The mathematical impossibility was staggering. Japan had stretched every resource to produce 76,000 military aircraft during the entire war, sacrificing civilian production and stripping the economy bare. Yet America seemed to be stockpiling more planes than Japan could build in a decade, treating massive air fleets as surplus inventory rather than precious strategic assets. If you want to discover more incredible stories of how American industrial supremacy stunned even enemy intelligence services, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Takeshi Yamamoto had been operating in California since March 1941, long before Pearl Harbor transformed him from diplomatic attaché to enemy agent. His cover as a landscape gardener provided perfect access to military installations, aircraft factories, and shipping facilities that revealed American industrial capacity far exceeding Japanese intelligence estimates. What he discovered would challenge everything Tokyo believed about enemy capabilities. The Lockheed facility in Burbank presented Yamamoto with his first glimpse of American aircraft production that defied Japanese understanding of manufacturing possibilities. P-38. Lightning fighters emerged from assembly lines at rates that seemed impossible. 12 aircraft completed daily from a single plant, with quality control standards that exceeded Japanese military specifications despite mass production methods that Japanese industry had never attempted. Yamamoto's photography equipment, concealed within his gardening tools, captured evidence that his superiors would initially dismiss as enemy disinformation. Completed aircraft were stored in vast outdoor lots, protected by nothing more than canvas covers and periodic maintenance. The casual treatment of expensive military equipment suggested production abundance so complete that individual aircraft were considered expendable rather than precious. The workforce diversity at American aircraft plants amazed an operative trained to expect industrial efficiency only through hierarchical discipline. Women comprised nearly half the assembly workers, performing complex operations that Japanese tradition reserved for male technicians. African American workers operated sophisticated machinery with competence that contradicted imperial propaganda about racial hierarchies affecting technical capability. Intelligence gathering revealed systematic approaches to aircraft production that Japanese industry had never considered feasible. Subcontracting networks distributed manufacturing across hundreds of smaller companies, each producing specialized components to standardized specifications that enabled final assembly at centralized facilities. This distributed production system created redundancy that protected against disruption while achieving total output that centralized manufacturing could never accomplish. The raw material flows supporting American aircraft production indicated resource availability that Japanese planners found difficult to comprehend. Aluminum arrived continuously from smelters operating without electricity restrictions, while steel, rubber, and specialized alloys flowed from suppliers operating at capacity levels that exceeded Japanese total industrial output across all sectors. American aircraft manufacturers faced organizational challenges rather than material constraints. Quality control procedures observed at multiple facilities revealed American engineering philosophy that emphasized systematic reliability over individual craftsmanship. Statistical sampling methods ensured consistent performance across thousands of aircraft, while standardized testing procedures verified specifications that Japanese artisans achieved only through individual attention to each unit. Democratic manufacturing was producing superior results through systematic methods rather than traditional expertise. Training programs for aircraft workers demonstrated American approaches to skill development that contradicted Japanese assumptions about the time required to achieve technical competence. Workers acquired specialized expertise within weeks rather than years, while systematic instruction methods enabled consistent quality from personnel who lacked traditional apprenticeship backgrounds. Industrial democracy was proving more efficient than hierarchical systems for large-scale technical achievement. Personal interactions with American workers revealed attitudes toward production and national service that differed fundamentally from Japanese military discipline. Employees participated voluntarily in overtime shifts, contributed suggestions for manufacturing improvements, and maintained quality standards through personal pride rather than authoritarian supervision. Democratic participation was creating engagement levels that exceeded compliance achieved through traditional control methods. As 1942 progressed, and American industrial mobilization accelerated, Yamamoto's intelligence reports documented production capabilities that Tokyo would find increasingly difficult to accept as accurate rather than elaborate deception. The Douglas Aircraft Facility in Long Beach, California, sprawled across industrial terrain that dwarfed Japan's largest manufacturing complexes. Yamamoto's reconnaissance in June 1943 revealed assembly operations that challenged every assumption about the relationship between quality and quantity in advanced manufacturing. C-47 transport aircraft emerged from production lines at rates that exceeded total Japanese transport aircraft construction for entire years. Statistical analysis of American aircraft production required mathematical calculations that seemed to defy industrial logic. Boeing was simultaneously producing B-17 Flying Fortresses, B-29 Superfortresses, and various fighter aircraft at combined rates exceeding Japanese total military aircraft output across all manufacturers. The scale of operations suggested industrial capacity that treated global warfare as routine business expansion rather than maximum national effort. The B-29 Superfortress program particularly amazed Japanese intelligence analysis because the aircraft's technical sophistication exceeded anything in Japanese development, while being produced in quantities that Japanese industry couldn't achieve for simple trainers. Advanced pressurization systems, sophisticated fire control computers, and precision engines were being manufactured through mass production methods that maintained individual aircraft complexity while achieving systematic delivery schedules. Worker productivity measurements revealed American manufacturing efficiency that contradicted Japanese beliefs about the relationship between automation and employment. Highly mechanized production lines employed more workers per aircraft than Japanese facilities, yet achieved superior unit costs through systematic organization that eliminated waste while maximizing individual contribution to collective output. Democratic manufacturing was proving more efficient than authoritarian alternatives. Innovation continued accelerating rather than declining under mass production pressures, contradicting Japanese assumptions about the incompatibility of creativity and systematic manufacturing. Engineering teams were developing improved production techniques, enhanced materials, and design modifications that increased performance while reducing manufacturing complexity. American industrial democracy encouraged innovation through competitive methods rather than suppressing creativity through bureaucratic control. The supply chain logistics supporting American aircraft production operated across continental distances without the transportation disruptions that plagued Japanese manufacturing. Raw materials arrived on schedule from suppliers thousands of miles away, while finished components moved efficiently between facilities using railroad and trucking networks that maintained delivery schedules regardless of weather conditions or competing demands from other military production. Quality assurance procedures exceeded Japanese military specifications, despite mass production volumes, the Japanese tradition associated with compromised standards. Systematic testing protocols verified performance requirements that Japanese craftsmen achieved only through individual attention, while statistical sampling methods identified potential problems before they affected large production batches. American standardization was achieving consistency that individual expertise had never accomplished. International cooperation through Lend-Lease programs demonstrated American ability to support Allied aircraft requirements while maintaining domestic production superiority. British, Soviet, and other forces were receiving American aircraft that enhanced their capabilities without compromising American advantages. Democratic values were creating sustainable alliances that authoritarian systems couldn't replicate through coercive methods. The maintenance and logistics infrastructure supporting American aircraft operations revealed systematic approaches to equipment lifecycle management that Japanese forces had never developed. Standardized spare parts, systematic replacement schedules, and comprehensive repair procedures enabled sustained operations at scales that Japanese tradition couldn't support through improvised maintenance methods. As 1943 concluded, Yamamoto's accumulated intelligence painted a picture of American aircraft production capacity that exceeded Japanese total industrial capability by factors that made continued resistance mathematically questionable rather than strategically challenging. September 1944. The aircraft storage facility near Davis, California, revealed the ultimate proof of American industrial supremacy that even experienced intelligence operative Yamamoto found difficult to comprehend. Thousands of brand-new aircraft sat in perfect rows, each one representing manufacturing capability that Japan had never possessed, waiting for deployment orders that might never arrive because America had produced more planes than it could use. The mathematical implications were staggering, beyond Japanese strategic comprehension. Conservative estimates suggested over 50,000 aircraft in various storage facilities across the American West, representing more military aviation capacity than the combined air forces of all Axis nations at peak strength. American production had exceeded strategic requirements to such a degree that surplus aircraft were being preserved rather than scrapped, treated as national assets rather than industrial waste. Aircraft preservation procedures revealed American confidence in continued technological leadership that extended far beyond current military requirements. Protective coatings, systematic maintenance schedules, and environmental controls maintained aircraft in ready-to-fly condition despite indefinite storage periods. American abundance enabled long-term strategic planning that treated massive air fleets as insurance against future threats rather than current necessities. The variety of stored aircraft indicated production diversity that Japanese industry had never attempted. Fighters, bombers, transports, and specialized aircraft were represented in quantities that individually exceeded Japanese total production in specific categories. American factories were simultaneously developing and manufacturing aircraft types that Japanese planners would have considered mutually exclusive due to resource limitations and technical complexity. Quality control standards for stored aircraft exceeded Japanese operational requirements for frontline equipment. Systematic inspection procedures, replacement part inventories, and maintenance protocols ensured that mothballed aircraft met specifications that Japanese forces would have considered luxury standards. American abundance enabled perfectionism that scarcity-based thinking had never contemplated. Personnel management for aircraft storage facilities employed thousands of workers whose sole responsibility was maintaining equipment that might never be used operationally. Specialized technicians, security personnel, and administrative staff represented employment levels that exceeded Japanese aircraft manufacturing workforce for actual production. American economic capacity enabled systematic preservation of strategic assets through dedicated human resources. Transportation logistics for moving stored aircraft to operational status revealed infrastructure capabilities that Japanese forces had never developed. Railroad networks could deliver aircraft anywhere in the continental United States within days, while specialized handling equipment enabled rapid activation of stored units without compromising technical specifications. American abundance included systematic activation procedures for surplus capacity. International implications of American aircraft storage became apparent through intelligence about Allied requests for equipment that could be satisfied immediately from existing stockpiles rather than requiring new production. British, Soviet, and other forces were receiving aircraft from American reserves that exceeded their total national production capabilities. Democratic abundance was supporting global alliances through systematic generosity. The economic efficiency of maintaining vast aircraft reserves challenged Japanese understanding of resource allocation in strategic planning. Storage costs were absorbed without apparent strain on American economic capacity, while systematic preservation procedures maintained equipment value that Japanese accounting would have written off as unproductive investment. Democratic capitalism enabled long-term strategic thinking that command economies couldn't afford. As autumn progressed, Yamamoto realized he was documenting not just American military superiority, but systematic industrial capacity that would define post-war global relationships through strategic advantages that extended far beyond current military requirements. December 1944. Yamamoto's encrypted intelligence report reached Imperial General Staff Headquarters in Tokyo, carrying statistical documentation that would challenge every assumption Japanese military planners held about enemy capabilities and the mathematical possibility of continued resistance. The numbers were so overwhelming that senior officers initially dismissed the report as obvious American disinformation rather than authentic intelligence. The documented evidence was undeniable despite its implications. Photographic intelligence showed aircraft storage facilities containing more military aircraft than Japan had produced during the entire war, while production statistics indicated monthly American output exceeding Japanese annual capabilities at peak mobilization. The arithmetic of American abundance rendered continued Japanese resistance statistically impossible rather than strategically challenging. General Hideki Tojo's staff conducted independent verification of Yamamoto's intelligence through alternative sources that confirmed rather than contradicted the the devastating assessment. Diplomatic contacts in neutral countries reported similar observations of American industrial capacity, while captured American documents revealed production planning that assumed continued warfare at expanded scales indefinitely. The intelligence was authentic, and its implications were catastrophic. Technical analysis of American aircraft specifications revealed engineering capabilities that exceeded Japanese assumptions about enemy technological development. Advanced radar systems, sophisticated engines, and precision manufacturing indicated research and development programs that operated without the resource constraints limiting Japanese innovation. American abundance enabled simultaneous advancement across multiple technical disciplines that Japanese specialization couldn't match. The psychological impact on Japanese military leadership reflected growing comprehension that their strategic planning had been based on fundamentally incorrect assumptions about enemy limitations. American industrial capacity wasn't being stretched to maximum effort. It was operating at comfortable levels that could be expanded indefinitely if strategic circumstances required increased production. Japanese sacrifice was being matched by American abundance that rendered individual dedication mathematically irrelevant. Economic analysis revealed American financial capability that supported global military operations while maintaining civilian living standards that exceeded Japanese peacetime prosperity. Democratic capitalism was proving more efficient than command economy organization for systematic resource mobilization that benefited both military effectiveness and domestic welfare simultaneously. Japanese austerity was being defeated by American abundance that made conservation unnecessary rather than virtuous. Strategic implications extended beyond current military operations to post-war global relationships that would be determined by industrial capabilities rather than military victories. American aircraft reserves represented technological advantages that would influence international politics for decades, while production capacity indicated sustained leadership in aviation development that traditional powers couldn't challenge through conventional competition. The workforce development that enabled American aircraft production revealed systematic approaches to human capital enhancement that Japanese education had never contemplated. Training programs produced technically competent workers within months, while democratic participation encouraged innovation that exceeded compliance achieved through authoritarian control. American society was creating sustainable advantages through individual empowerment rather than collective sacrifice. Innovation acceleration under mass production conditions contradicted Japanese beliefs about the incompatibility of creativity and systematic manufacturing. American engineers were developing improved aircraft designs, enhanced production techniques, and advanced materials that increased performance while reducing costs. Democratic competition encouraged continuous improvement that central planning had never achieved through administrative direction. As 1944 concluded, Tokyo faced strategic reality that would influence decisions about continued resistance against mathematical certainty rather than military opponents who could be defeated through tactical excellence or spiritual determination. August 15, 1945. Emperor Hirohito's surrender announcement reached Japanese intelligence services who had spent months documenting American aircraft production that made continued resistance mathematically impossible rather than merely difficult. The final statistics were overwhelming. American factories had produced over 324,000 military aircraft during the war, with reserves exceeding 100,000 units held for conflicts that would never occur. Takeshi Yamamoto sat in American custody. His intelligence-gathering career ended by the same industrial capacity he had spent 4 years documenting. The interrogation sessions revealed American knowledge of Japanese aircraft production that exceeded Tokyo's own understanding of domestic capabilities. Enemy analysts possessed more accurate information about Japanese industrial limitations than Japanese planners had maintained throughout the conflict. The mathematical comparison was devastating in its finality. Japanese aircraft production peaked at 28,000 units in 1944 under maximum wartime mobilization, while American output reached 96,318 aircraft the same year, while simultaneously supporting global lend-lease programs and maintaining strategic reserves. The production ratio of 3.4 to 1 represented systematic advantages that individual courage couldn't overcome through tactical innovation. American aircraft storage facilities that Yamamoto had documented contained more surplus equipment than Japan had produced during the entire war, treated as strategic insurance rather than desperately needed military assets. Democratic abundance had enabled long-term planning that extended beyond immediate military requirements to anticipate post-war global responsibilities and potential future conflicts. Technical superiority of American aircraft reflected research and development programs that operated without resource constraints limiting Japanese innovation. Advanced electronics, sophisticated engines, and precision manufacturing indicated systematic advantages in industrial science that authoritarian organization couldn't replicate through ideological motivation or administrative control. Democratic competition had encouraged innovation that exceeded centralized planning achievements. The workforce development that enabled American success provided lessons for post-war Japanese reconstruction that would influence industrial recovery and democratic transition. Training programs, worker participation, and systematic education had created human capital advantages that would define technological competition for generations. Democratic values had proven more effective than authoritarian methods for sustained industrial achievement. Economic efficiency of American aircraft production challenged Japanese understanding of resource allocation in competitive development. Democratic capitalism had achieved superior cost performance while maintaining higher wages and better working conditions than Japanese facilities. Market competition had encouraged efficiency improvements that command economy organization had never accomplished through administrative direction or ideological compliance. International cooperation through aircraft sharing programs had demonstrated American ability to support global alliances while maintaining technological leadership that ensured continued advantages. Democratic values had created sustainable partnerships that authoritarian systems couldn't replicate through coercive methods or temporary convenience. American generosity reflected abundance that enabled strategic thinking beyond immediate national requirements. The innovation that continued throughout mass production contradicted Japanese assumptions about the relationship between quantity and quality in advanced manufacturing. American engineers had developed improved designs, enhanced production techniques, and advanced materials that increased performance while reducing costs. Democratic industrial organization had encouraged creativity through competitive methods rather than suppressing innovation through bureaucratic control. The preservation of aircraft reserves demonstrated American confidence in continued technological leadership that extended far beyond military victory to post-war global responsibilities. Strategic planning that maintained surplus capacity indicated systematic advantages that would influence international relationships through industrial capabilities rather than temporary military dominance. If this incredible story of how American industrial mathematics overwhelmed even the most dedicated enemy intelligence services inspired you, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales of how democratic abundance changed the course of history. The spy who couldn't believe what he saw had documented the mathematical certainty of American victory. 300,000 aircraft in reserve represented systematic industrial advantages that authoritarian systems could never match.